Gaming NBS episode 300, being recorded Monday, June 29th, 2020. I think we hit it right on the head, man. Like 1 minute after 8 o'clock Central Time.
That's not bad. That's pretty good for us.
Game NBS, the Tabletop RPG Podcast. I'm Sean.
I'm Brett. Welcome to the show. Welcome back, folks. If you just joined us, sorry for what you're about to endure. If you've been with us for a while, you know this job was dangerous when you signed up. So, nothing for you people. Oh, man. How you been, Sean?
Fantastic.
Get any good gaming in this last weekend or week?
Anything I did not do any gaming this weekend.
What the hell?
Mr. Hubs, who runs our BX game, had prior commitments, so we were down a player out of 4.
Oh, I see.
So we postponed. And then this weekend, I think I'm going to try to get our Tomb of Annihilation game all wrapped up. Yeah. It's Saturday on the 4th, so I don't know if everybody's available. I posted it, and I haven't looked at the responses yet. So, you?
Let's see. Play Call of Cthulhu with AJ and Lana. And Lana made it to the second floor of the haunted house. Then the bed frame smashed into her and knocked her out a window. She fell to her death.
Oh.
And she said, I've never had a character die that quick before. I said, you okay? She goes, that was kind of cool. Can I make another one? AJ's character fled screaming. So they're going to try it again. They're going to go back to the haunted house and see if they can figure it out. If anybody's an old, long-time Cthulhu fan, it's the haunted house that's been in a number of different Call of Cthulhu core books. It's in the Quick Start Guide. My kids have never played anything like this, so it's not... Sometimes I feel like those things, for some reason, I'm going, oh my God, so hacky to use that thing. But it's a really good way to get the kids used to, and me, the new mechanics within 7th edition. It was cool. We did, push and luck and tried all sorts of cool stuff. So it was fun. They had a good time. The system was rolling really well. They had a blast getting the handouts because I printed out the little. If you go to the newspaper, you could get handout 1, 2, or 3, and then they're lining them up and drawing connections and stuff. So it's pretty cool. It's very fun to watch. And let's see. Then it was Under Mountain. So that was fun. We survived. That was good. Last Tuesday, work blew up, so I didn't get a chance to run my Avalon game, which was disappointing and frustrating all at the same time. But this week, tomorrow's Avalon game should be better. So, or at least should happen. So that'll be good. Hopefully work won't blow up. So anyway, that's about it, man.
No blowing up allowed at work.
I would hope not. Just getting tired of it.
Yeah.
So, how's that YouTube channel doing, dude?
Not too bad. I was going to put it in the die roll, so I did the spell duel mechanic of DCC. I thought it was all right. Mirko had some very valuable feedback, which is stuff that I will take to the next one. I haven't decided what I'm going to do the next one on. There's a lot of core. Like, I could do a lot of, like, how does Gumshoe work? Nope, I don't know Gumshoe.
Did you see the feedback in the forums?
I did, I think,
people said some nice things about you.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Oh.
So I assume this is probably the end, and it was good working with you. As you rocket your way to stardom,
right?
I'll sit back here.
Oh man, that video is not my jam. Like, I've got audio down, I've got some streaming down fairly well, think
video. Think of the years you've been doing. I mean, you had Grumbling Dwarf, you've done other podcasts, and you're an audiophile kind of guy. And then you take that and say, well, all right, we'll just add video to it. Anybody out there who's done video, it's not easy. It's like
if you want to do it, like, what is the video piece? How's that come into play, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you might have a vision and go, oh, this would be really cool, and I'll produce it like in this way. And then there's my own limitations and like, well, I'm not a Adobe Premiere guy or whatever.
I thought I could do this. Turns out I am not Steven Spielberg. Turns out I can't do that or whatever. I don't know. I know what I have in my head. How do I make the thing happen out loud? Yeah.
So it is definitely new and refreshing, and I think I've got a new angle. It's not new. I think I just have to hone in because on the DCC video, I do a little bit of DCC commentary, like, oh, this is what Dungeon Crawl Classics kind of incorporates, or the feel and stuff, which is, probably 5 to 7 minutes too long. Like I could just nix that and get right into the spell duel and call it a day. So,
yeah, I mean, just go right for the core of it. Look, if you want to know what this is about, go see Gaming BS episode. Not 70? Is it 70? Whichever one we did with Jen.
Actually, you're really close, Brett. I think Jen was on 71, 72 or 70, 71.
Yeah, if nothing else, go into your podcast section of your DCC rulebook, and it has our link in it.
Yeah,
but I mean, I think that's interesting. Whereas this show, we can ramble a bit, which we are wont to do. But in that type of thing, you want to grab them, hook them, and go. And if somebody shows up like, what's this DCC thing about? It's like, hey, check these other sources out. Not getting into that here.
Right.
Which is tough to
grab
do,
them, hook them, stick them in a stew. Grab them, hook them, stick them in a stew.
Nice. All right. Anything else? Anything new, crazy, interesting?
I don't think so. I can't think of anything new or interesting.
Did you slap the Ennies thing down in the...
I did. It's in the die roll. Cool. Are you working your way backwards through the notes, Brett?
Maybe. It's been a long, weird ass day. I hate SOX auditors. Sorry.
You hate what? SOX auditors?
SOX auditing.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Gaming NBS. We're going to be talking about socks today.
Yeah.
And it's not ones you put on your feet.
No, this is Sarbanes-Oxley, also known as Brett Wants to Kill Himself. Yeah, it's terrible. Anyway... Let's stop talking about that shit before I just get upset and start drinking. And just move on to Random Encounter. Let's just go.
Jeez.
This is not
Welcome to episode 300 where we really bring it to you.
Yeah, this is not good. I'm failing.
Random Encounter, a segment of the show where we field emails, voicemails, comments from social media. We'll give Brett just a little bit of a reprieve as we have Chris Shore calling in to leave a voicemail. So
Thank God, because I am fucking this up pretty hard for the beginning. I'm going to step aside and let somebody else talk. Carry on.
After the show, stick around. We'll be holding auditions for Sean's new co-host.
Somebody's got to know what the fuck they're doing. Carry on.
Hey, Brett and Sean, it's Chris Shorb, and I realized you're probably going to be recording your 300th episode sometime soon. Congratulations to both of you for lasting this long. Really have enjoyed your podcast, and your podcast is unique amongst all my podcasts. It's the only one that's an hour or longer that I still subscribe and listen to every time it comes out. And that's a credit to you guys continuing to be funny, to be engaging, and to be talking about interesting stuff. Again, congrats on 300 episodes. And, whether you stop tomorrow or whether you continue for another 300, I'll be here. Take care, man. Bye.
That's very nice. Thank you, Mr. Shorb.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Thanks, Mr. Shorb.
You can read the next one. I'm still not with it. You carry on.
All right, that's fair enough. All right. Let's see. Patron Harrigan files this at the 11th hour. He writes in, Sean and Brett, 300. This is Sparta, Gaming NBS. Congrats, fellas. Serious milestone. I've really enjoyed the last few episodes. Lots of overlapping themes, kind of culminating in the GM style. Episode number 299, fun listens. I have gobs of thoughts on the subject, but I'll be brief, I promise. Point 1, a final thought on both resource management and tension. In addition to rolling the die of fate to see if bad things happen, you can also drop specific entries into random tables. Encounters, weather tables, random events, wandering monsters, whatever you're rolling on, include entries for running short on food if the party is exploring the wilderness, running short on air if the party is exploring a derelict spaceship, running short on torches and 10-foot poles if the party is delving into a dungeon, advancing the big bad's armies if the party is wasting time at any activity you don't like. This one is for tension. Advance that doomsday clock. Little custom built tables are awesome for this sort of thing, and they are easy to make And remember, if it's random, it's not your fault.
The other cool thing about a table like that is when you have that wonderful inspiration piece, like, oh yeah, this could happen in the wilderness. Oh, this could happen on a derelict spacecraft. If you put it in the chart, even if you're not really rolling on it to be random, sometimes it's just a bullet point list of shit that I think would be cool to happen. And you've got it right there because you won't hit that writer's block kind of feeling in the middle of a game. And afterwards going, oh, yeah, that's right. I wanted to have them lose air. Son of a bitch. But you're like, oh, wait, it's on the list. So it's a really good way to go. Anyway, He's not done yet. Carry on.
He is not done yet. Point 2, GM style. The last episode. I'm 100% with Brett.
Well, that only makes sense. There, see, that's a pick-me-up. That's what I needed after this.
Yeah, see, Brett, you get on
right
the
there.
show and shit just turns around for you.
It does. Thank you, Harrigan. Very good.
God, somebody pick this guy up, man.
Somebody, Jesus.
The way I describe my own preference is that I need to be able to internalize a game. I hate looking things up at the table. Breaking the flow, pausing the action, yuck. Yeah, I hear you. I think Brett does too.
Amen. Amen to that.
Man, indulging in vanilla Coke again and on the show, not cool.
Just, no, bad idea, dude.
Lots of burps. This is why these days I prefer lighter games. They are easier to internalize. It's also one of the reasons I've come to appreciate roll under or standard test for success systems. The GM isn't setting a difficulty most of the time, so it's even more streamlined. Can't say enough good things about the Black Hack, Tiny Dungeon, and Shadow of the Demon Lord for this kind of speedy play. Where I differ with you two is that I enjoy both games where the story emerges from and is centered on the PCs, and games where the characters need to plug into a setting, where they are just part of a wider world that cares little about their pathetic lives. Both have advantages, and you don't need to play one versus the other exclusively.
Absolutely right.
That's all I've got. I'll crack a beer for you tonight. Again, nice work running a podcast of this quality for this long. All of us BSers will listen along happily until Sean puts himself in the hospital on his one wheel, and Brett finally admits he's a card-carrying story gamer and disappears into that scene. Cheers, Harrigan.
Oh, yes, that's very good.
Yeah.
Actually, Harrigan, I gotta say, man, I reread my Black Hack. It's not hard to reread, right? But I busted through that, and I'm like, there are some really, really good, fast, smooth, elegant things in this, and yeah, I'm gonna give that a go. I've got to. It's one of those games. Like, yeah, I should run that sometime. It sits on the I should run it sometime shelf. But this one's got to come out. So
Harrigan's joining us this evening live and is confirmed that he is drinking that beer he mentioned.
Well, I would hope so. Harrigan's no liar.
He's a man of his word.
Damn straight.
Hey, shout out to Brazil.
Hey.
Hello, Brazil.
All right. So patron Ghost GM comments on GM style. Last episode, 299. I wrote the below post before I listened to the episode, so I'm leaving it here. I think that it reflects my current GMing style. Free not to mention it. Not too bad, buddy. We're doing it anyway. I'm posting this here because it comes after one of the best gaming sessions I've run, and one of my players said they've had it. One of the best gaming sessions I've run, and one of my players said that it's also the best they've had in a long time. The best part of it is it was completely narrative, even though we were using a non-narrative system, i.e. D20. To me, narrative games can happen no matter the system used, as they involve the complete engagement from the players and the GM in the story that's being told at the table. For this reason, I dare say that narrative games almost go hand in. These are the preferences that have become dear to my heart. I started with D&D 4e, so that tells you what I liked at the beginning of my short RPG career. So, on to the episode deets. The characters, so we're going to get a little background here. The characters in the Eye of the Storm, as Farford calls it, which is me, have to agree with him on that, are living in Puerto Rico. Definitely know what that is. Ooh, good Lord. Backgrounds are important depending on the adventure. If it's homebrew, I always use their stories in the game somehow. But if it's a pre-made adventure, I'll ask questions, like why do you bother to live there? Why would your character be here and not other places? Basically, at the point, the important thing is not the background per se, but how the PCs interact with the world, i.e. their personalities. Player narration, even GM narration, happens before the die roll that allows me or the player, if they want to narrate their success/failure, to provide an answer to what happens. I believe I believe the role should be done when it's going to change the scene in some way. This is the idea of the failing forward mechanic, at least as I understand it. Dice rolls in the open, period. Rule of cool is always allowed at my table, but only if it's appropriate. They know to use common sense. Although the systems I like to play allow for that kind of stuff. Really good episode. Ghost GM, Jermaine Sanders. So very cool. Very, very cool. Yeah. I think it's I like the fact that Ghost GM went through and just kind of like, hey, how do I answer these questions? What does it mean to me, type of thing. That's pretty cool. Nice. Thank you very much for writing in.
Yeah.
Sean, over to you.
Keep diving. Comments on GM style. Good episode, guys. So much to address. First, I am very much a different GM now in my 40s than I was in my childhood or even 10 years ago. I think I have changed in a manner similar to how Brett has changed. Has Brett changed?
A little bit. Gotten older. Beard's longer and more white. I know that.
I used to be overly concerned about the experience of role-playing. To accommodate a desired experience, rules often were fudged or ignored or cooked. In other words, the game was a story first, a game second. These days, in contrast, there is no better term for my role than that of referee. I no longer see myself as owning the game or the narrative experience. The application of this perspective is therefore similar to Sean's school of GMing. I have a world, however, I allow my players to define components of that are relevant to their characters. I have determined some things that are happening in that world, and I have players. Sometimes it's difficult for my players to understand that I don't at all care what their characters choose to do. There is honestly and truthfully no desired path for them. It totally and profoundly doesn't matter to me.
That's a powerful statement. It really allows you to, if you can do that, if you can do what Gabe's talking about there, in my experience, when I have been able to make that, some really cool shit happens. But you have really got to let go, hand off the wheel. You've got to, it's like teaching a kid to ride a bicycle at a certain point. You got to push him and let go and hope Sean doesn't crash this one wheel. It's got to go. It's got to let him go. Carry on.
The previous comments are specific to my ongoing D&D sandbox. When I run Conan 2D20, the experience is quite different, but my approach is nonetheless similar. That game encourages the adventure to open in the middle of situations and go. In other words, I do in 2D20 what I do with my D&D. There is a situation and I drop my PCs into it, but the situation is smacked right into the faces of the PCs, and the adventures tend to be punchy and episodic.
Nice.
Brett's GMing style topic involved rules mechanics as well as tonal and pacing considerations. By the way, my most favorite groups are infinitely patient ones that are happy to open the books and learn how a rule should be applied to given situation. I don't enjoy the pressure of always having to keep everybody focused and entertained. It seems that he prefers to defer to a game's more core mechanic or simply GM around a ruling. I agree in principle, but one of the reasons I prefer to run early D&D is because universal mechanics, to me, don't always apply to every situation. Some rules are better suited for simulating some actions than others. Early D&D is famous for a host of mini-games designed to simulate a variety of applications. Why? Well, you're certainly welcome to argue with me over it, but for me, it's because rolling a d20 plus modifier doesn't seem relevant to every possible situation.
I think there's merit to that. There's totally merit to that. I mean, without pinning, Mr. Ward or Mr. Mensner or one of the old folks that helped us, one of the originators of our hobby with these rule sets, pinning them down saying, what exactly did you mean, Mr. Ward? It's hard to know. And even now, what you knew back, history is, we have 20/20 hindsight a lot of times. So sometimes there's like, I was trying to do blah, when in fact, like, hey, I had this D12, no one was using it. I just thought it'd be funky if we had a D12 chart. Sometimes that's exactly why things happen. So I like it. It's a good perspective. Keep going.
This also brings up for me the starkest issue apparent in this topic. What is the more powerful force defining the game experience? Is it the GM or the rules? In Brett's case, it appears to be the GM. Brett might GM around any situation arising in nearly any game, and he will lean back on his well-defined style from years of practice. It makes me want to experience Brett running Avalon and then Call of Cthulhu, because I wonder if my overriding takeaway would be contrasting experiences between those two very different game systems, or a more powerful regard for Brett as GM. For running, regard for Brett as GM. For Brett running games, for Brett running any game.
No, fair. I mean, keep going. This is cool.
Yeah. This is not meant to be a condemnation of Brett or me or anybody, of course. But judging from what I'm hearing, I'm guessing that Brett likes a certain game experience at a table, and he makes the game, any game, regardless of system, do precisely what he intends from the story tone and pacing he has in mind.
I would have to agree with you. I think, introspectively and looking back, Sean and I have talked about this a little bit, and sometimes if you say, hey, I'm going to play in this game, who's your game master? Sean. Oh, he's really good. Why is he really good? Oh, man, his games are always... I very rarely have I heard somebody say, oh, that person's a great game master. Why? Man, she is rules as written all the time, absolute. The way the rules. It's always, at least as explained to me, how that person is implementing the rules, however they're working with it. I hear great things about Judge Jen Brakeman of DCC. She's great. Yet had to have the opportunity to play with her. She played in one of my games, but people say, "Oh, it's great because of how she does the game." Right. So I think I like what we're hearing here. So this is kind of cool. This is neat. Keep going, man.
Oh, excuse me, man. Burps.
Good Lord.
Hashtag burps.
What's wrong with you?
My own practice. I like to think our group approach is fairly collective. I'm the referee, so of course I have final say on a matter, but rarely do I have to be so autocratic.
Good.
If an unusual in-game situation arises, I tend to express how I intend to resolve the action, then I ask for feedback. The kind of collective game building, because these conclusions set precedents, have affected our entire system. Moreover, often my players make requests for rules changes to accommodate their emerging character concepts. Just one example, we recently decided to allow one monk PC to swap out delicate tasks and pick locks for cleric spells and the turn undead ability.
Neat.
I think Gabe's got Brett nailed.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not
Totally.
that difficult. I'm not that difficult to figure out, man. Ask my wife. It just didn't take her long to figure out how to crack this nut. It's not that hard. But I think I think when you start looking back at things, you say, hey, I express how do I intend to resolve the action, as Gabe says, and then ask for feedback, kind of collective game building. If somebody were to be outside, take notes as to how I ran a game and come back and say, hey, do you realize you asked 16 defining questions, and so nobody's doing that, at least that I'm aware of. No one's auditing games right now to come back and provide feedback and say, Sean, do you realize you said hell no and fuck you no 15 times in that last game? Now, most of them were geared towards Jeff, which we understand is reasonable. However, so on and so forth. I really think that if I were to look back on a lot of what Gabe is talking about that he's doing, I think I do, and I'm just doing it in my own way, perhaps, or maybe I think I am, and I'm not really. Which is, again, why it pays to think this stuff through periodically and why am I doing what I'm doing? Is it habit? Am I just game mastering over the top of everything because I can't stand the game system for some reason? Or what the hell's my deal? Or your deal in this case, Sean? Anyway, good stuff, though. Very good stuff. Thank you.
Great stuff.
Thank you, Gabe. All right,
Gabe.
So let's see here what we got here. Patron Old School DM comments on spell components from email on episode 299, and here's the obligatory RTFM post.
Right.
You knew it was coming. In response to a listener comment on episode 299 about D&D 3.5 spell component pouches, again, Brett and Sean don't know the 5.0 rules. It doesn't bother them not a whit. Slight smile. That's
Yeah,
true.
he had a couple emojis in there, kind of wink,
exactly.
smile. Yeah.
For the record, the D&D rules for component pouches is dirt simple. A component pouch is a small, watertight leather belt pouch that has compartments to hold all the material components and other special items you need to cast your spells, except for those components that have a specific cost as indicated in a spell's description. I think I referenced that, just wasn't quoting it verbatim, which I should have looked up. The vast majority, by count, of lower-level spells do not have a component requirement or have components requirement without a cost. Here's a list of those that have cost. So it goes through. With the exception of Gentle Repose, narratively requires 1 copper for each eye. All components listed below are 10 GP or higher, so the 5e pouch is functionally identical with the 3.5 version. So yes, Brett, 5e works basically the same way. Thank you, Randy. Every single spell my players have used regularly either have no material component or would be covered by the pouch or an arcane focus. So no fuss, no muss. No special accounting for normal stuff. The few things they use once in a while, identify, do not consume the component. Honestly, it seems the costs below are all about keeping some sense of checks and balances in the game. As a DM, I don't think I'd ever waive the cost listed. It ain't broken, and it doesn't need fixing. Old school DM, Randy. I think that's fair. Absolutely fair. What I wonder then, when I read that, I go, interesting. When do you have to refresh that pouch? Is it just assumed? And this is, again, I need to go back and reread the rules. It's on my stack of books to read again. But from a tracking gear perspective, you could say, okay, that's how the pouch works in 5e. Does it ever run out? I would assume yes. If you're in a desert or you're in the middle of the forest or a dungeon somewhere, how many uses does that component pouch have? And if it's a thing where you're like, look, I don't fucking care. It's just there. As long as you have it, you're good. Then it can be a treasure item. If you want, if you say, hey, things are running out, you could say, well, one of the reasons to kick the crap out of the monster wizard or the bad guy wizard is you get that person's component pouch because you may well need the bits or pieces. But I like this. As I said, we've said this before. We're going back over my 5e stuff, picking bits and pieces, going to do a complete reread again. But this was good stuff. Randy, thank you very much. This helps to speed my reading.
Jared and Mo say it doesn't run out. It doesn't mention anything about running out in the rules.
Neat.
Apparently, yeah.
So it's like a decanter of endless spell component water or something. Nah, it's kind of...
Harrigan mentioned a random table. What does the pouch run out or not?
Yeah, totally. I'm not saying you have to do that because to Randy's perspective, it's not broken. It doesn't need to be fixed. But if we go back to the earlier topics we had about tracking bits and pieces and so on, you may say, I like that. However, I'm going to only give it X number of uses. And then you may have to spend 5 gold pieces or a day foraging where you just go and find stuff. I distinctly remember in some of the old Dragonlance novels where Raistlin would disappear and come back and they'll be, where the hell were you? And he would say, I was gathering components I need for my spells, you morons. Which is pretty much how he would probably say it, because he was always condescending to them. But he would go and do that. You'd have to go and buy things and get pieces and parts. Sometimes it might even be a case of just regular cost of living. Maybe that's where it's covered, right? So your character's cost of living and so on. But again, if you're going to do something where you're tracking gear in a survival type of environment, you may want to assign some level of how does it run out, or how many uses does it have? Don't have to. Again, broken. You don't have to fix it. Just an idea. Very cool, though. Thank you, Randy.
Yeah, thanks, Randy.
More proof that our listeners are way smarter than we are.
Yeah.
Over to you, Sean.
Email from A-Bomb. Brett and Sean, I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller. I want to congratulate both of you on making it 300 episodes. Not many podcasts can say that. I've been following you guys since episode 50. No, I did not go back and listen to 1 through 49.
I will forgive you.
Pretty soon you're not going to be able to get those. Not through the feed. I think I'm going to archive some of them so our feed doesn't get completely out of hand.
All right.
You have to go to our website, by the way. So
Carry
check it
on.
out. I have been wanting to write to both of you for a long time now. I thought your 300th is the best time. Seems like a good time.
Why not?
Over the past 250 episodes, I've gone through a lot of life changes. Moves, kids, now 1 and 3. Loss of jobs, outsourced, and personal growth. One thing that has been a constant is your podcast. Thank you for being there, not just for me, but for the community also.
Wow,
Thanks, man.
That's really nice, dude.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. Thank you very much.
Very, very nice.
Very flattering.
On to the main topic, he. I would like to say that your podcast has my creativity flowing. I have only ran one game for about 3 sessions, then it went off the rails, so I never did it again. Your advice has given me new ideas, and I'm thinking of doing a one-shot to see how it goes.
Awesome. Very, very cool.
Brett, I know this is late. Well, really late, but congratulations on your Kickstarter.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
When it first started, I backed just the PDF version, but after I heard the actual play of your setting, I got the printed version.
Oh,
because
cool.
of life in general, aka 1 and 3-year-old, I have not gotten my copy yet. I am looking forward to getting it and reading it.
Oh, very nice. Thank you.
Sean, as a producer of the podcast, all I can say, masterful job. Quality editing and now streaming is top notch. Thank you for your hard work to keep the show going. Also, thank you for staying alive.
which is
You're welcome.
it's risky.
You should buy a train. They look safer to drive. Hey, train!
There we go.
Yeah, baby. Right. There are many more comments, gratitude, and banter I would like to add, but I am trying to keep this reasonable. Also, I have a short break to finally write this. Thank you again, guys. Keep up the great work. Here is to the first 300, and here is the next 300 episodes. May all your rolls end up natural 20s. Aaron A-Bomb Leskowski.
Very cool. Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah. Thanks, A-Bomb.
Yeah.
A-Bomb.
I'll tell you one that we've mentioned this before, and Aaron mentions it here is, hey, I want to try that again. I think there's a number of folks out there, Randy Farmer, Gabe. There's a lot of folks out there who have been gaming as long, if not longer, have great experience, have run stuff and played things I've never heard of, have amazing experiences that we hear these stories of. That sounds awesome. Man, I wish I had time to run that game or read that game or whatever. And that's great. But I really think one of the coolest things that the gaming BS community kind of as a whole is when we can say, hey, these people started running or playing or just got their friends together and gave it a shot, had a good time, and they're trying it again. And I just think that's awesome because it's such a fun hobby and near and dear to our hearts, obviously. I've been doing it since 3rd grade, and it's a lifelong, really cool thing you can do. So that's that's so awesome to hear. It always makes me happy.
And A-Bomb Man and anybody else that's reading this and they had that break and they're coming back, or they haven't delved in and maybe they've played or starting to play and they want to run. They're like, I'm really nervous about running. Fall off the bike, get back on the bike. It's okay. You brush it off. It's a bad session. We all have them. Brett has them all the time. You just...
A lot.
Get back at the table, roll the dice, and come up with a new idea or a new approach. And even sometimes the old approaches work just fine. Just don't give up, man.
No, and I'll tell you, there are times I go, God, that session, Jesus. The next day, text my buddy Lenny, man, I just felt off. He goes, what do you mean? That was awesome. Oh,
yeah, see?
Cool, thanks. Then I get a hold of Nick, and Nick's like, what are you talking about? That was great. I'm like, man.
It's like this podcast.
I thought it sucked
like
on
we
toast.
think it sucks every episode. And everybody's like, oh, that's good.
No, you're doing fine. Like, oh, okay. All right, let's go on.
All right, let's get to the main topic. Thanks, everybody, for writing in this week and past weeks. We appreciate it. Let's get into the main topic. Oh,
right.
My God. What are we talking about this week, Brett?
Well, in an effort to make sure this podcast continues to be good, I figured I'd pick one of our listeners' topics. If it sucks, I could just blame them. So, Gabe, you're up. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Gabe had a really good idea here. I like to grab these out in the forums and other places when the listeners give them to us because it's just, again, you folks have some really good experiences and are seeing things from angles that Sean and I don't always. Questioning stuff, which is great. So Gabe said this in the forums. He said, I've been thinking about PCs relying too much on NPCs. In a couple of games I've been running/playing in, it seems almost every time a question gets asked or a decision has to be made, the PCs say, quote, what does the NPC think? Does the NPC know the solution? Unquote. Basically, the PCs just follow around the NPC. In the game I'm in, the GM has been requiring PCs to spend a fortune point for relying on NPCs. How do you all handle it? Good grief, excuse me. I have run into this a couple different times over the years, especially
Twice?
New players. Especially new players. I'm under exaggerating. I'll tell you, but I find new players are lean on it sometimes because they don't know any better. And when new players lean on it, I give them a bit of a pass, insofar as I say, hey, these folks, she's not sure how to do this. He's not quite sure what they're supposed to be doing. They're having a hard time with it. So they look and go, oh, thank God. The game master put a GNPC, an NPC, whatever terminology you want, there. I can ask them questions and get data. Sometimes I think what's interesting to me is I try to make the NPCs, if you have a permanent NPC, by that I mean somebody who's adventuring with the group.
Is that the
Right.
game master player character or I've heard of GM NPC?
Some people. Robin Laws wants to call them GNPCs. I don't know. Game
I've
master.
heard it thrown around. I've never grokked it, but I don't.
Yeah, I don't. NPC, non-player character. We'll go with that because it's a faster acronym. But I think if you have a permanent NPC, sometimes it's even just a hireling, a henchman, the rented wizard who's with the party, the torchbearer who's hanging out with you as you go into the Tomb of Ultimate Death. How the hell you convince that poor kid to come with you, I have no idea. But it's very common for the players, because when they're stumped, to turn to the person, hey, you're from this town. Do you know anything about the story of the Witch Mountain? Do you know anything about the thing in the spaceport? You live here, don't you, kid? Or ma'am, or sir, or whatever. Boy, I'll tell you, like I say, experienced players, it kind of irritates me, frankly, where I'm like, really? Y'all don't want to... Why are you doing that? It's kind of
So
like,
it irritates you for them. It irritates you for them to use the NPC as a
like just as this. Oh, that's the NPC. They have to know.
Oh,
They live here. I'm like, okay, so it's like using them as a Google. Using them as, well, they have to have the right information. So before I get into options and how I've dealt with it, Sean, do you run into this? Is Jeff and company in the Tomb of Annihilation, are they leaning on NPCs left, right, and center and saying, oh, you're the sage who studied the great Lich Kings. I'll go ask you every time I have to blow my nose what I should do and shouldn't do. Do you run into that?
I have, sure, of course. Yeah, I think kind of all do at one point, but I think the degree of that occurring varies.
Does it irritate you, or do you list like,
it irritates the shit out of me.
Is it a necessary evil? You think it's just kind of...
I think sometimes it's okay because so part of me is like, yeah, this is great, because if I try to facilitate something, there is the meta game, which we all know about, and then there's their in-game piece. And I try to keep things in-game if I can. And one way to convey those things is have an NPC thrown in there to convey it for you in the game.
Absolutely, because this is a first-person narrator who's telling you exactly, don't go to the town, don't go to the bar. Oh, that space captain is evil. Oh, those cowpokes hang out there. They're telling you stuff. They're giving you data directly. And man, in Call of Cthulhu,
right,
you've got to investigate. You've got to talk to people. You've got to ask the cops. You've got to try to push. My kids last week, they go to try to push themselves into the Globe, the Boston Globe newspaper archives, and they botch their roll. Then they're like, okay, we're going to push. I said, remember, if you push and you fail, the mechanic says it's a disastrous type of failure. They fucked it up. I didn't say fuck it up they're my kids and they're young, but like, hey, you messed that up. So they get booted out. They're banned for life. This person refuses to talk to them anymore. And like, oh man, oh jeepers. And it's terrible. It's shocking to them because like, oh, we were getting all this good info and now it's dried up. So I think what Gabe's talking about here is having to spend fortune points or dice rolls to try to get stuff out of people, some kind of a spend. And if you jack up the spend, or you screw up the spend, I should say, it costs you, where they don't want to talk to you anymore. They don't want to deal with you as a character or whatever. Personally, Sean, how I deal with this is a couple different ways. And it all boils down to the NPC's personality and goals. Does the person is the person open to being liked by you, talk to you? What's their personality like? Will they talk to you? Blah, blah, blah. And why the hell would they tell you? What's their goal? What's this going to bring about if they tell you something? So if it's in a town and somebody's just needling the bartender, eventually the bartender's like, look, I got shit to do, and walks away and goes, and serves the Twi'leks at the end of the bar because she's busy. She doesn't have time to just sit here and be grilled by you, whether you have seen this, this person, this wretched hive of scum and villainy you're hanging out in. Really? I see lots of scum and villainy every goddamn day. The Twi'leks need a drink. And you just, they walk away. The other thing I do is NPCs don't always have accurate data. So you ask somebody what happened, and my kids learned this early on, and they first level characters, they go in there, and the blacksmith's son had been kidnapped, and what took them? It was demons, small demons. They had wings, and the kids look, and AJ, who's played, he goes, Dad, we're first level. These can't be demons. I said, they believe they're demons. He said, oh, so it could be anything. I said, yeah, ask them questions if you want to. What does it look like? Oh, they're small. They're all scaly, and they growled, and they had wings. They're kobolds, man. But I just went full description, over the top description. Were they small? Oh, no, they're huge. That guy's lying. He's fabricating, or he's just mistaken.
Well, in defense of your kids, they are in your game.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. They know I'm.
Oh, Asmodeus. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Totally don't want to go there.
We all know that Dad doesn't give a crap about balance. So what's that? Mephistopheles? Sure. What the fuck? Why not? Oh, look at that. It's Orcus. Wham, 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 wham.
No, just saying.
No. It's fair of them to ask the question. I'm not saying that. It's not fair. But I like having, for me, as you were saying though, instead of making it a mechanical thing sometimes where you roll the die and if you fail, you have to back off. Because sometimes you can get the skill dog piling issue then too. Sean tries to talk to the bartender. And the bartender's like, piss off. I got to serve these Twi'leks, and wanders over there and starts serving. And so, okay, I'll try it. Well, after the third bounty hunter in this group goes and talks to the bartender, they're like, get out. Right? If you start pushing, then what I'm doing is in-game, the narrative-wise, is if you constantly push, you start skill dog piling, the NPCs are getting sick of your shit, and they start kicking you out of their establishment. If you pitch a fit, they've got bouncers. You go too far, they call the cops. They don't have to put up with this abuse. So just push you out the door. And again, NPCs don't always have the full story, don't always have the true story. Some NPCs, I used to do this often in my vampire games when they would go talk to people. I shouldn't say often, but it was a trick I would use where somebody liked attention. And they would tell you something, but they always step up the story a little bit. They always embellished. The tale was always a little bit bigger than you thought it would be, right? And then you go there and you're like, this wasn't that big a deal. What the hell happened, right? Well, it turns out this person's just not a very trustworthy source. And that becomes a thing, How do you, I've got a couple other ones, but Sean, how are you dealing with it when it happens? Do you do it in game like that? Are you doing die rolls to say, all right, fine, try to push your luck? I mean, mechanically speaking, 7th edition Cthulhu has that, right? If you fail it, you can push, and then something bad happens, so which is kind of cool. But how are you dealing with it?
So one example that came up specifically is that there's the Red Wizards in the Tomb of Annihilation. And then, of course, there's that component. So it varies depending on what the role of the NPC is. And if it is, it's funny because I think we, as game masters, I'm not answering this directly, but I think as game masters, sometimes it's hard to not dump the Google on the player characters, because as a person that's standing there that probably knows some things, maybe they're from the area, that they would probably divulge some of it. But then again, you also want the players to, it's a weird dynamic. There are some organized play modules. It kills me because it's very formulaic. You're brought in as a group. There's a point of contact. The point of contact wants to hire you for something, so they spew the stuff and make the pitch.
It's the Mr. Johnson approach, right?
It is totally
do this
Mr.
thing,
Johnson.
Go get this. The old Shadow.
Go get this, right? And of course, then there's like 6 points, right? So if the players ask about this, this is the response. And if players ask about this, then that's the response. Well, then there's the conundrum. Well, do I just puke this upon the players, or do I have to get them to actually poke and prod? So every time I'd play organized plays, we'd go through these kind of routines, and then I'd ask the NPC as a player character, is there anything else that we should know that you haven't told us?
which is the catch-all question, right? Are you sure? Maybe.
Right.
One
is that
more?
it? Did we miss anything? Were there any questions we should have asked that we didn't?
This feels like an interview process, right? So
Man.
I'll tell you one of the things the other thing that can happen, and this is kind of a solution in my mind anyway, is the NPC, it's fun. We want to get in character and talk as the NPC. You don't have to do the funny voice. We can have a mannerism or even just plain dialogue where you say, oh, yes, stranger, how were you? Oh, fine, I'll fetch you this. Oh, you'd like that? Oh, boy, that person up on the hill, they sure aren't trustworthy. You can, in lieu of that, shortcut it and say, what are you trying to find out? And you just kind of break that moment for a second, go meta for a minute. What are you trying to find out here? I want to know, has this farmer been to the Borewood? Oh, okay. Yeah, the farmer has not been to the Borewood. They can tell you that other people have. They're nervous about it because there's giant wild boars in there. And there's actually a rumor of a wereboar, some kind of a horrible, demonic, large pig that kills people. 5 knights have supposedly gone missing in this wood. That was not in character. That was not in an NPC's voice or in whatever. But it's a shortcut through some of that process. Instead of having to go back and forth and you asking just the right question to speed it along sometimes and to then do a Google dump quickly and say, I'm basically telling you this is all they know. You're asking them, I assume you're going to ask them for everything they know and you're going to push them until you get it. Well, I don't want to be a dick about it. Okay, so I'll tell you what. It takes an hour. You buy a couple of drinks, mark off 2 silver pieces, and you've been able to talk to these farmers and get some information out of them. Or, hey, you've been hanging out at the bar. You finally talked to the one Twi'lek. You've got some pretty good information, and you know where Commander Solo is. Great. You can shortcut. Some players don't like that. Some game masters don't necessarily like it. But it is a way and a tool I've used sometimes just to speed things along. When it feels like you're just pushing the NPC and pushing them. And sometimes I do have players who have done this, and even some of my group, they are very clever, and they love being clever. And I ask him with my left foot on the bar. Now I shift to my right foot. Now I start twiddling my thumbs, but right over left and then left over right. Does that do anything? You're like, are you fucking kidding me? What's wrong with you? Those are extreme examples, but crazy. Drinking from my left hand versus drinking from my right. Trying to put my glasses on, take them off. I've had people do this stuff. You're like, what do you think this is going to, you think this is some secret sign? What the fuck are you doing? So to get past that stuff ages ago, I developed this thing like, look, what are you trying to find out?
My NPC would be I am dealing with El Ducho.
Yeah, I have had people at ages back in my old vampire game. They do them like, the NPC would be like, are you hitting on me? What? You look like you're coming on to me. I'm not interested. Oh, good Lord. I apologize. Whatever. And the other thing that I honestly, though, if it's, no, that's like a one-shot thing, right? Like, hey, you deal with the NPC and move on. There's a difference then if you have a recurring NPC that's always there. And people have mentioned this in the Forgotten Realms. Well, you just go talk to Elminster and he'll tell you everything. Well, first off, no, Elminster's kind of a cranky old ass. At least that's how I've always run him or seen him run. He's an old guy. He doesn't have time for your shenanigans. But if you have a town with this person, you come to find, oh my gosh, in this town is an old retired Jedi Master. Wow. I bet this person would know a lot of stuff that could possibly solve our problem. So they give a bunch of data. You're like, oh, great. That's perfect. It's there. You now have this fixture NPC who's a retired Jedi Master. 2 sessions later, they come back to the Jedi Master to ask him something again. Next time they come back and ask him, something else, and again and again and again.
But next time he's dead.
Yeah, then you kill the bugger. You kill the bugger straight off if you have to. Just weave that into the plot line, or he died of old age, or whatever you got to do. But if you're dragging NPCs around with you, it can get trickier. And where, you're talking to the person with you and you turn to the NPC and say, well, you're from this town, or aren't you from this planet, or whatever the case is. So I still tend to step out at that point, Sean, and do the meta thing where I say they don't know that. You can ask him 16 ways from Sunday, but, Colonel so-and-so, he may be from here, but this is the first time he's ever seen this. Oh, he's just shocked. Yeah, he's absolutely shocked as you are that this is how the bears are acting, or this is what happened here. And that says a shitload right there.
Well, I think that's a thing we've touched on, I don't know how many shows ago, but one of the things that is lost in RPGs at times is how a character may feel. And that is something that a game master needs to tread lightly upon, because you want the player to be able to dictate how their player character feels.
Yeah, because if I tell you feel sad right now, I don't.
Well, do I?
Why would I feel sad? Is there a spell on me or something? Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there are gut instincts, intuition, where you can't necessarily get that, and if you do, it may not be in the right direction, where the game master can help out with that and say, well, your gut, you feel as though he's telling you the truth. You're getting a feeling from the player, the NPC, that they aren't hiding anything, or they have no ulterior motive. To inch that player character along, in a way that they're not, I'm not getting the answer I want.
I'll tell you the other thing to help inch them along there too, kind of it's like a finality to it, is that's a good place to do the skill check sometimes, because you'll get talking, You're like, oh fuck, I should have had them do this, that, or the other thing, but the conversation is just flowing, man, and it's going, and everybody's having a good time, and suddenly Ange says, boy, I just don't know. Ange, give me a sense motive. My players in my Pathfinder game are like, oh, they're using that all the time just to see somebody lying to me. Can I do a deception check? And I'll drop the difficulty super low, like 5. Because it's really obvious. You know what? They'll say, I only got an 8. That's okay. It was only a 5, because here's the deal. This person it's so obvious that they're lying to you, or so obvious that they're heartbroken and very upset. And when the skill check occurs and the answer happens with a decent narration, a decent description, it's the nail in that coffin. Oh, that's it. There is no more to get. Because sometimes it could be, well, I get where you're saying that he's from the planet, but he's never seen it. But it doesn't make any sense. You said he knows a lot about... All right, I'll tell you what. Give me a roll. Roll your deception. Roll your whatever it is. Whatever your interpersonal skill is that would help you in this case. And if they roll it, if they fail it, they botch it, or they do really well, that's a level of finality that sometimes certain players, and game masters too, will say, see, there, that's the answer. And in those cases where... sometimes that's when the dice are really, or whatever your randomizer choice is, can really be your friend. In those cases, look, this is the answer as you know it right now. Act upon this. Because sometimes the constant pinging back and forth to the NPC is, I don't know what to do. And they're basically asking the game master through the NPC to tell me which direction to take. Right? So... and in lieu of you going, look, take the right goddamn passage. Why are you doing this? Get on the spaceship. You're supposed to go here. Instead of doing it so overtly, the players will ask the NPC. And sometimes I have seen over the years where players don't even realize that's what they're asking, but they are asking that. So again, a die check, or in this case, a fortune point, as Gabe was saying he has seen, that gives a level of finality to the answer. Like, this is it. This is all you're going to get. Or in Sean's case, is there any other question I should have asked during this interview? To make sure I've milked everything because of the goddamn formulaic approach to life. Does that make sense, Sean?
Yeah, it does. And it's a balance. Like, you got to, when I put NPCs in there and there's information that could be conveyed to the party in a constructive manner, then great, I want to be able to do that. But they also have to, you got to make it realistic if they're going to just divulge it walking down the street. Hey, you guys should go talk to the wizard.
Yeah.
Why? Well, because I think you have questions about stuff, and that wizard would definitely be able to answer them, whatever. Like, what?
I like that because, like in the Cthulhu game for my kids, they show up at the haunted house, they describe the neighborhood, and there's a guy in the neighborhood who's, he's a cigar, basically sells smokes and magazines and newspapers, right? He's the newsstand guy. So I describe him, and AJ's like, oh, he's in the neighborhood. I'll ask him what he's seen. Perfect. He was the only named person in the neighborhood that I gave a description of. I said, oh, yeah, and there's a newsstand there. There's a guy. It says, sells newspapers or whatever the hell I said. I can't remember what it was. And then I said, there's other stuff and shops and things, but that's the only thing that stands out. Just give that type of and then, oh, let's go look over there. I do have other players who are like, oh, that's where Brett wants us to go. Where's the nearest used shoe dealer? What? Sorry, I'm going to go talk to him. Bastards. And players like to do that to me too. They go look for something that doesn't exist because they just want to mess with me. But I think there's another piece. Gumshoe does this insofar as that if there's a main piece of information you're supposed to get, you need to get that to move on. It's like a clue coupon, and some people say derisively, and other people say
clue coupon.
Say they like it.
But this will grant you one clue.
But neat. The other thing I found, though, is that sometimes if you've written the thing, you've built the thing, or you're running the adventure, like, oh, this is really cool data. I hope the players know this. You can tell them. You don't have to wait for them to ask just the one question. If you really think this adventure would be a lot more fun if Mr. Johnson up front told them the 3 super secret hidden points, there is no gaming place unless you're wearing one of our shirts. You can just freaking give it to them. When in the talk, if the talk is going well, no dice need to be rolled. No specific question needs to happen. Let's say it's just going on. It's just a really good chat. Next thing you know, you're doing a podcast with a dude for 6 years, and you're like, how the hell did this happen? But, you can just have things naturally evolve and say, you know what, this conversation is going great. Yeah, they tell you the 3 secret points because why not? Let's just make this happen. And some adventures, quite frankly, the pre-generated ones I've read, sometimes like, man, I really hope they ask this question because this is really cool. And boy, this adventure is so much more fun, I think, with this thing known. Right. I want them to have fun. I want to have fun. I want them to have a good time. So I do my best to try to sometimes to coax them. You sure you got nothing else to ask them? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You sure you don't want to try it one more time?
Well, and
just dump the data, man. You could do that too.
And the reason that's a bit of a conundrum is because you don't want to just spoon feed them everything. You don't want to just dump on them all of it because it sucks some of the fun out of them discovering things.
Yeah, it is an art. There's a piece, and I think what Gabe's talking about here more specifically is every time a question gets asked or a decision needs to be made, someone turns to the resident NPC and says, "What do you think? What do you think, Gandalf?"
I'm going to call my next NPC Google.
Hey Google, or Siri, and they have to address them as Hey Siri,
that's right.
or Alexa, so that way when they're in your house and they say, Hey Alexa, yeah, that's what you should do. That would be funny.
Yeah, there, done, finished. Any players that have listened to this that are in any of my games, there you go.
That's the answer.
Now everybody in Mothership this Thursday is going to be like, hey man,
hey Google.
Yeah.
I honestly, though, I think that in that case, the fortune point, sometimes stepping outside into the meta level and saying, Commander so-and-so has seen this end of the galaxy, one side and up down the other. Boy, he's never seen anything like this before. You can see it in his eyes. He is not kidding. That man is shocked. Okay. That's the answer. I don't need to prod him and poke him and say, should I fight the monster? Should we try to land on that strange planet? Do we eat this thing? What's this facehugger doing here? Oh my God. There's no point in wasting time or looking for the NPC for guidance because they are just as gobsmacked as you are. And that kind of takes that out. You're in the dungeon, you're in the spaceport, you're in the jungle, wherever it is you are, you look to your guide and they go, I have no clue, man. I am just as shocked as you are right now. I literally have no idea what to do. My compass has never failed me before. I don't know what to do. I've never had this happen. The goblins have never attacked us before. I don't even know what to do with this information. That type of thing, I think, for me anyway, is an in-game way to solve it. And sometimes you can also have some would say grown up, but also kind of annoying discussion sometimes, or some people call it annoying, is, guys, look, you've got the same thing with your group. I've gamed with my guys for over almost 25 years now. I go, stop asking him. He's not going to tell you what to do. If you really don't know what to do, go back home and call your mom. Stop that. And Lenny be like, yeah, you're right. I'm being a jerk. That's too. Well, he's here. I wanted to bug him. I know these guys. I can rib them and give them crap and tell them that they're acting like a bunch of little kids for asking permission for everything that they do from the stupid NPC. If I haven't known you for 25 years and I don't want to insult you like that, I would be a little bit nicer and, say, hey, again, this person is shocked. They really don't know what to do. Or they could look at you and say, I honestly don't know. Sometimes you can also tell them, Matt Colville brought this up in a video where he said, I just flat out told the player that the person you're asking is a coward. He will follow you, but he's terrified to make his own decisions. Oh, good to know. And sometimes that type of thing also, as you travel or whatever, you can start to bring that out. This person's afraid of their own shadow. This person is terrified of something. This person won't make a decision. Every time you ask them, well, I don't know, Sean. What do you want to do? And every time, what do you think? What do you think? NPC guy. Well, I don't know. I'm not sure what to do. After a while, you stop asking Google. If he always says, I don't know. What do you want to do? It's like trying to pick 5 different people in an office. Where are you all going to go for lunch? After a while, that game is really boring, and people start making their own decisions. Sean, are there other ways that you've dealt with this?
No, not necessarily. I mean, you give them the info that they want, and you answer the questions that are asked. It all depends. Again, it all depends on the motivation of the non-player character. Sometimes they just don't have the info. They're not.
Yeah, they can look at you like,
it's so funny because I'll get like, what are you talking about? He doesn't have the info. He's like he lives here, And then there's this big freaking weird. Why are you arguing with me on whether this non-player character knows the info you're looking for or not?
I had that conversation a while back with somebody, and I said, who lives 5 houses down on your left? By name.
Right.
And they went, well, I'm just saying, we're playing a modern game right now in Chicago. You tell me who lives on the flat, 3 stories above you, 3rd from the elevator. Who is that? Well, okay, I get your point. Not everybody knows everything, dude. It's just not possible. And some people don't pay attention to anything. There are people I work with that still don't remember certain things. Like, how many times do you have to tell you? It happens.
Right.
So, cool. Gabe, I don't know if that helped or not. And if other people have different ideas, we talked a little bit about, using mechanics to kind of put an end to the method. Like, hey, you ask a thing, roll a die, spend your point, you either get or don't. That adds a level of finality. I think having the in-person conversations, the stepping out of it to the meta perspective can be pretty helpful. But if other people have got better ideas or tools or things they've done in the past, or if you've done shit that hasn't worked, that's always good to hear too, because we learned from those mistakes as well as anything else. So, you good, man?
I'm good, Brett.
Let's move on to die roll, brother.
Die roll segment of the show. We talk about comments. For duty for miscellaneous points of gaming and geekery, want to share with you. First one's the YouTube video I did on Spell Duel. Check that out on YouTube's. More to come.
Mm-hmm.
Suggestions are welcome.
You had a couple in the forums, man.
I did have some on the forums. Second one, congrats to the 2020 Emmy Award nominees. Check out the list. Appendix N podcast that Brett and I have both been on.
And they're awesome people.
Jeff and Hoy.
Yes.
Going over Appendix N books and novels and bringing guests on there to talk about them. So check that out.
It's a good show. They are really good people, and I think they deserve it. Absolutely.
Last one, interactive Eberron map. Thanks, John Arcadian. I don't know if I knew this was out there, and I didn't know if it was done by John. I thought I had seen one prior, but maybe it's not. So I may be bubbling up something I was already aware of, but I thought it was cool. It's big. Go online, big map by Eberron, and you can zoom right in.
I want to think we've talked about it before, but man, there's so much cool shit out there. Sometimes, have we seen this before? Have you seen it before? I don't know. I'm going to show you what I just saw. It's do it, man. No, it's really cool. I took a look at it. So John does good work.
Yeah,
hell of a designer, good developer, and an all-around good guy.
Yes, I think there's one for Star Wars out there. Like it, you can zoom in and out of the galaxy.
Oh wow,
yeah, it's super awesome, man. Otherwise, that's it for this show and die roll.
Yeah.
As being episode 300, that's 300 hours plus 300 shows in a row minus like 1 week. So I think it behooves us we thank people on a weekly basis, but I think we need to do it specifically on this show for sure.
This is a big ass milestone, and quite frankly, Sean and I have talked about this before. We've said it here. We have people who have supported us through Patreon. We have people who have supported us in other monetary ways. We have other people who don't want to, whatever, they don't do it monetarily, but they tell their friends. They just listen and write in. And when they see us at conventions, they come over and talk to us. They interact with us on the forums. We talk online. Some of the coolest gaming people I've met in recent history have all been people because of this show. It's wild. It's really, really cool. And I think without having the listenership and the engagement that you all have with us, I think the show, it would have died a long time ago. And I mean, you all have done a great job helping Sean and I keep things going. Gabe's idea of this topic, we've had a number of those over the years, and the feedback. I have learned so much stuff. No hyperbole at all. I am a better game master and a better player from the feedback that you all have given to us over these last 300 episodes, 6 years of doing this. I've learned a ton, and I'm a better gamer. And quite frankly, I think I'm a more open-minded person than to a lot of these different perspectives and ideas than I ever was before. And I see things way differently now than I ever did before because of what's been opened up. Like, holy crap, this is a problem. Holy crap, this is a cool thing. Wow, I should try to say something to help people understand that this is okay or whatever it is. You folks are just awesome. So thank you.
Yeah. So patrons, in the past, present, future, when they listen to this after the fact and become patrons, that has helped us financially and paying for hosting and a bunch of other stuff. Thank you so much. Thanks for everybody that's ever written in, submitted a die roll, showed up to a con, made us stuff like, coasters and
run games at cons under our banner. That is a huge compliment. Yeah. That's a huge thing.
Yep, running games at cons. I mean, there's so many, and you all partake in your own special way. I mean, some of you are just simply subscribers and listen to the show, and that is just great. Like, that's just fine. And then, of course, I think it would be amiss if Brett and I did not thank our significant others, because there's plenty of things that are out there that some people may find more important, and namely our wives may wonder what the hell we do every week for like an hour and a half.
There's a lot of other things we could be doing, and this is an extension of our hobby, and it's a time thing.
Yeah.
And it's big. So Tam and Susan, thank you both very much. This is a lot of work. And the fact that both of them and my kids and everybody else puts up with the fact that I got to do this thing. Can I do this Monday? Nope. Recording. Sunday? Nope. Recording. It's just, both you and I, Sean, were pretty lucky. We've been given the latitude to do it for this long.
Yeah. A lot of people, they're not able to do it and swing it. And we've had the graces of key individuals in our lives, specifically those two that have allowed us to do it. Misdirected Mark, I'd be amiss if we didn't thank Phil and Chris. They really kind of gave us a boost right in the beginning, and they did a segment on their show talking about our show.
It was,
unbelievable support from those guys.
Huge stuff. Buffalo. And if it wouldn't have been for that connection, the Streets of Avalon from a book perspective and a product never would have happened. Actual play podcasting for that setting never would have happened. The Kickstarter, all that stuff. And, I've said this before, but Sean, it comes down to the fact that you recruited me at a job, found out I was a gamer. We continued to have lunch together. And one day you're like, hey, have you ever thought about podcasting? I'm like, isn't that stupid lame thing that has no traction? You're like, oh, no. It's really cool, man. Let's talk about this.
Got an eye for talent, Brett.
Apparently you do. I don't know why you wasted that on me, but all right. Thank you.
Yeah. And then also thanks to, this goes back, and I think Brett would probably do this as well, but to the folks that got me into gaming way, way, way back in the day, I could be, a 40, 50, 30-some-year-old guy who never understood what it was, never got into it, it was never presented to him, never had the opportunity, but that didn't happen to me. I was young, kid, had older friends, and I know Jeff was in the chat, but I think he may be watching, but he may not be in the chat, but getting me into D&D when I was 13. I mean, I'd had a long hiatus, and getting back into it. But, I don't take that for granted. That's great. And I'm glad I got to realize this hobby through buddies of mine. So.
No, it's really cool, man. If it hadn't been for a sleepover at my buddy Todd Thompson's house in 3rd grade, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
It was that thing. Hey, you want to play this game my brother and I play? Sure, whatever.
Jeff's in the chat.
And here I am with all this stuff. Oh, yes, awesome.
Yeah, pile on Jeff.
All right, man. We done?
Right. Yeah, we're gonna wrap up the audio.
Okay.
What are we talking about next week? Do you know, Brett?
I have no idea yet. We'll figure that out.
All right. I'm Sean.
And I'm Brett. Good night. Good gaming all.
This episode of Gaming NBS brought to you with the help from the following BSers: Corey Wynn, Graham Miner, Sean Nicholson, Brett's biggest fan, Forrest DeGary, Tim Jensen, James Carpio, not Caprio, Misdirected Mark Productions, Jason, Todd Crapper, Eric Hoffman, Christopher Lang, Mark Richmond, Peter Skanes, Gord Cranford, Eric Bonts, Knights of the Night Crew, Evan Harrison, Cass, Goblin's Henchman, Jessica Sparks, Palladian, Cole Kego, Yorkus Rex, Kevin Lovecraft, Jeremy Marr, Sean Knight, Christopher Gray, Scott M. Law, Corey Sepelak, Maura Reese, Rolfer Guild, John Steve, Brian Kurtz, Ray Otis, Stefan Dragonspawn, Larry Hout, Mark Tasaka, Pure Mongrel, Chris Steele, Ron Bishop, Thomas Hook, Wayne Humphrey, Craig, Brandon Barnes, Laramie Wall, Dan LaValle, Jason Hobbs, Sky, Old School DM, Perry Basor, Jim Fitzpatrick, John Kayward, Corey Gonzalez, Eileen Barnes, Robert Nemeth, Nola Burt, Niall Diamond, Howard Bishop, Eric Salzweedle, Closet Gamer, Aaron Coleman, C.W. Mellencat, Craig Huber, Old Scouser Role-Playing, Andy Hall, David F. Baylog, Harrigan, Melissa Bashinsky, Ryan Rumble, Henry Newcomb, Eric Telvola, Roger Braslett, Mark Sohm, Andy Hall, Eric Avia, Ron Blessing, Jeff Seifert, Mike Hess Jr., Angus, Rory Weston, Curtis Hinson, Jim Ingram, Daniel Garrett, Eric Frankhouse Presents, Huss Carl, Jason Weeb, $1 Adventure Frameworks, Jared Rasher, Phil McClory, George Sedgwick, Tony Sugarloaf Baker, Jay Plata, Ghost GM, Michael Dinos, Trezzy, Mike Cyberlick, Chad Glayman, Finolf, Josh Wallace, Adam Grotjohn, Ed Knights, Corey Welsh, Mirko Froelich, Rich Wishan, Joe Swick, Curtis Takahashi, and Aaron Ralia. Hey, tell somebody about our show. Thanks, everybody. We really appreciate it. This has been a Litterbox Studio production.